Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Up and Comer Show. This is a podcast all about learning how to live a good life. We believe that takes having intention in the tension, because life is inevitably filled with tensions that we get to live and marry in most of our lives, if not all of our lives. And being an up-and-comer is a lifelong process. We are learning our entire lives. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a great interview coming up for you. But before we get there, a few reminders. First, leave us a rating and review on iTunes. This is the easiest and one of the best ways to just help our show reach more people. We want to get the message out to others. So if you could scroll down on your phone and tap that 5-star button and drop in a few notes, that would mean the world to us. And if you leave a review, me and Adam will probably read that on air. So get some airtime, make some time for yourself by writing a review. We would love that. If you want to support us financially, we do have a Patreon account set up where you can drop some dollars our way, and that really just helps us keep the lights on, as there are costs associated with doing the show, and we've been doing it for over 2 years now. So it'd be a sweet way to help us if you want. Definitely check us out on Patreon. A couple other exciting things. We launched a YouTube, so definitely go check that out. YouTube, just search the Up and Comer Show and we'll pop right up. Every episode will be available on there from now on. Shout out to Oksana, the newest member of the Up and Comers team. You can find her on our website under the Socializer page. You can read up all about what she's up to in life. So thank you, Oksana, for that help. And we're also on the other socials at Up and Comer Show. If you want to get in touch, send us an email. theupandcomershow@gmail.com is where you can reach us. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this episode, this interview, pass it on to some friends. Share it with your community. Get the word out, because this is I think this is one of the, recency bias. I always think these are one of the best ones I've ever done. But this is just an amazing interview, and it's worth sharing with people that need to hear the message. So that gets us to today, which is an interview with none other than Brian Larrabee. So who is Brian? Brian Larrabee leads Good City Mentors and is considered a leader in building strategic community partnerships for social good. In 2014, after meeting students from a continuation high school in South Los Angeles, he brought in 35 inspiring friends and began what is now Good City Mentors. Today, Good City Mentors has over 300 mentors and has seen graduation rates triple since their inception. Good City Mentors was awarded as one of LA's top emerging nonprofits for 2018 and is recognized as a leader in high school-based mentoring. Brian attended Southern New Hampshire University, where he graduated Summa Cum Laude and was the Business Student of the Year. He was the school's first ever NCAA Academic All-American and signed a professional basketball contract to play in Porto, Portugal. Brian currently resides in Mar Vista, California with his wife and baby boy, Camden. And in this episode, we dive into the power of mentorship, the importance of relationships, how to improve your relational capacity, the importance of failure in life experiences in the journey of life. We talk about the hero's journey and how that's played out even in our own lives, and much, much more. This is a really engaging story and an engaging conversation, because Brian is very real and honest and vulnerable, and really opens up a lot of the most pivotal moments of his life that has shaped who he is today and really formed the work he's doing today with Good City Mentors. I've been blessed to be able to be a part of Good City Mentors the last couple months, and I've just been blown away by the impact we've been able to have on high school students' lives just after a few months. It's really floored me. I didn't expect this to play as big of a role in others' lives, and even the impact that it has on my own life has really humbled me in a lot of ways. So I knew I had to get Brian on the show to share more about his story and the work that he's doing. So if you want to find out more about Good City Mentors, definitely check out his website, goodcitymentors.com. We're going to link that and all the show notes at theupandcomershow.com/episodes/Brian, Brian, Brian. And definitely check out what they're doing. It's worth a look. It's really important, impactful work. And I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. So I'm going to be quiet and let you get on with the interview. Without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Brian Larrabee. Brian Larrabee, welcome to the Up and Comers Show.
Thanks for having me, Thane.
It's going to be a fun time. I was really, it's been neat to see how God connected our paths and getting to know you the last, 4 to 5 months now has been just a joy. And I think that when you meet someone in life and they are both a kindred spirit and a kindred soul, have very similar experiences in a lot of ways, it's just you connect. And it's been fun to connect over the last handful of months. So excited to dive in today.
Yeah.
So I want to start here. To you, how do you define, or what is a mentor? Mm-hmm. How do you define what a mentor is?
Really easy, consistent connection.
Consistent connection.
Yep.
Now, the beauty in that response is it shows a level of mastery. The only way that you get to that simplified and refined level of an answer definition is a measure of mastery. So break that down for me. How does that play out in life? Consistent connection.
Yeah. Well, I can just tell you a little bit from, maybe from my story. If I look back in my life and, what I've always wanted most and what I've always desired and what I've always craved most was to go to someone and spend time with that person and that person to see me for who I was, but also to encourage me for what it is that I want to be. And so that's what I feel like is something that not just me, but I feel like everyone wants that in their life.
So true. There's a great quote. I think it was, I don't know if it was Carl Rogers, but he said that which is most personal is most universal. Mm. And it's so true, right? Mm-hmm. Like the places that we are most personally tied to that are maybe our greatest need or greatest strength, whatever, is usually the most universal. And I think you really hit on something there. So who was your first mentor, or when did you first get a taste of this in your life?
Yeah, as a basketball coach, his name's Doug Kilmer. He was my high school basketball coach, and I was a freshman. I was playing up on varsity in basketball, and had about a half a year where I just started kind of going down the path wasn't the wrong path, or the path that I don't feel was mine, and he really took me aside. I didn't even know I was going down that path. Sometimes I just didn't know while it's happening and wanted to be liked. And he really took me aside and brought me into his office. And he says, "Hey, if you want this, you can be a really good basketball player, and not just really good basketball player, but you could receive a full college scholarship playing basketball where your parents don't have to pay. And not only do I see that in you, but I'm going to actually help you get there." Mm. And that was incredible, because I had heard that from people in the past, but I never had anyone actually say, I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to journey with you on that path, and we're going to do it together. Mm.
Words are cheap, right? It's always the actions that really make the difference. And it's so, it's fascinating, right? Because it's really, until someone takes the initiative, we don't even know. I feel like as kids, we don't even know what that looks like until someone else shows us. Mm. Yeah. Is that, do you ever see, what's important about, a better way to frame it is, what's important about mentorship? What role does mentorship have in development as a person? Yeah.
I say this all the time, not because it's, a cliche or you see a place, but actually I've experienced it, and I've seen it with what we do with Good City Mentors and working with youth all over Los Angeles. Is in life, relationships are everything. We say this to the students all the time. when the students we work with, they say, well, I'm good. I don't need anybody. I'm good. I'm good by myself. And a lot of that comes from hurt. We hurt people as human beings. We hurt one another in a lot of ways, but also we love one another. And I say when someone wants to punish someone, what do? And they say we isolate them. And that's what we do in prison. If someone did something that was so horrible, what do you do to punish that person? You throw them in isolation, right? And as human beings, that's what in a lot of ways what we do when we've been hurt is we put ourselves in isolation. So I think that mentorship, the best way to think of mentorship also is mentorship is just relationship. It's something we crave. You can look at it in it's the meaningful, positive relationships that I have in my life or friendships that I have in life. That's also a mentorship relationship.
Yeah, totally. I think that's massive. I know we put titles and put things in boxes, but at the end of the day, it can look like a lot of different things. And at its core, it is relationship. It's so fascinating too on the isolation. I think that's a really important thing to note. What do you think keeps people from having a mentor, or what stands in the way typically from that playing out in people's lives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like to frame mentorship as more of and this is we do in the training for our mentors, if you know how to build a meaningful relationship, you know how to mentor. So I like to frame mentorship as more of a relationship. People think of mentorship. How do I get in touch with that guy that's running that business that's doing that? And it seems so far away, but if I want to do that, I have to reach that guy. And I think in a lot of ways, we just need to look at around us and who are the people around us that we want to build meaningful connections and meaningful relationships with, because ultimately we may think that guy or getting that job is going to give us what we want, but in reality, what we really want, and I know that I've in my life over and over again, what I want is I just want a caring person, a positive relationship, a meaningful relationship with someone that will see me for who I am, will believe in me, and will help me get to where I want to go.
I love that. Yep. And it goes back to what you said at the start, being known and being empowered, right? Those are kind of the two fundamental longings that that really fulfills. So let's talk about your journey in mentorship, because it started with the high school coach empowering you as a player, believing in you, and then coming alongside you. What ways did mentorship develop, or how did it continue to develop you in your journey? Who were other key mentors in your life? Yeah,
we tend to think of, so if we frame mentorship as like a consistent connection, we tend to think that might be forever, and a lot of times it's not, as we know. This wedding ring on my finger, this is forever. It actually has 2016 to forever. Like, I know that my wife and I, that is the best mentorship relationship, my wife and I. But a lot of times mentors might be in our life for just a moment, and they might be, but I think they have to be in your life for more than just a moment, but more than just one time or just like a motivational speech that you hear that they're in our life, maybe for a few months or a few years. And then as you evolve, a lot of times our mentors are going to evolve. So, that high school coach, when I graduated high school, Doug Kilmer, I stayed in contact with him, but we didn't have as much of a meaningful personal relationship. I went off to college. So then I met at college, who are the people around me? Well, it was my college basketball coach. It was teachers in college. It was local business people in the Manchester, New Hampshire community. They became my mentors in a lot of ways. So I think mentorship evolves as we evolve in, time and also space.
And for you, what would you say kind of, if you could bring that evolution full circle to today? So in college, it was the coaches and the team around you, but after college is kind of when it gets a little bit more gray, right? Before college, it's always prescribed almost. It's the people that are naturally in our lives, but then it gets into post-college. Like, what was that for you then after college? Who were those figures or those relationships for you?
Yeah, it really was after playing basketball, and a lot of, I know you can identify with being a professional golfer, is when I was done playing professional basketball, I had a 8 to 10 years where I really was challenged trying to find who I was and my identity. My identity was always in basketball. And in a lot of ways, sometimes I look for those meaningful relationships, and that wasn't a positive mentorship, but I would look for who I was in kind of external things, or maybe even external people. So I would say once I was done playing basketball, I went into the business world, and in a lot of ways, I isolated myself. I didn't necessarily have a mentor or a positive kind of relationship, because everything my focus was I gotta be successful in this business world now. I gotta whatever, I have to feed whatever that lack of identity that I was feeling at that moment with these kind of external things. So there might also be a time where you lack meaningful relationships and mentorship, and that's okay. And that was an unbelievable learning experience, but it was tough. Those 8 years were really tough.
What brought you out of those 8 years of isolation? Like, how did you become aware of that, and then kind of shift out of that back into those relationships that do support?
Yeah. So I was, just to go into a little bit about my story, I was the youngest, so I got out of basketball and was just like super achiever, and I was like, well, now I started with another guy who started a medical sales company, and I did really well because I used a lot of the skills that I had to achieve in basketball to also achieve in sales. And I was the youngest person in the history of this company to be offered a full-time position. And it was more money. I was probably, at the time, 27 years old. It was more money than I've ever seen my entire life. I called my parents and I told them, I said, Mom, Dad, I'm buying you a house on the ocean or the lake, whatever you want. This is what I've made it, I've made it. And I went to New York. I met with the company. I said, yes, I'm doing it. And I came back home. I was living at the time in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I came back home and just something inside of me was like, this is not your life. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a mentor. It wasn't a relationship. It was just something inside of me that said, this is not for you. This is not, you see the path where this is going. This is not a good path to go down with where I was in my life. So I remember calling the guy, his name was Alex Marsden, calling him on the phone and praying that he didn't answer, and he didn't answer. I left him a message and I said, Alex, I can't take this job. Not only was I so afraid to tell him, I jumped on a cruise with a friend that was going with his wife. It was me, him, and his future wife. He was fiance. Oh, no. We went on a cruise. I said, I got to get out of town. I went on a cruise. I got to get out of town so this guy can't call me. So I got out of town and I had so many messages. I went out of town for 2 weeks. I come back and everyone's like, what's going on? What's happening? But I was just so afraid to tell him and let him down. But I just knew that there was something more for my life.
That's amazing. I love it. It's interesting. So when you're sharing this, it really made me think about the hero's journey. Do you know? Are you familiar with that? The kind of the storytelling arc that Joseph, I believe Joseph Smith,
Campbell,
Joseph
Campbell.
Campbell. I always get those two mixed up. No, it's not that. Joseph Campbell that he came up with, and I think this makes a lot of sense. Like, I think this is so universal that in our younger years, we need to have someone come alongside us and really mentor us, right? Empower us, help us along the way. But there comes a season in life when we have to go out on our own. We have to make that voyage, right? And really learn through the success and most likely the failures. And gain those experiences and then return back to the fold in a sense of relationships and really come with, not necessarily enlightened, but come with life experience that really forms a foundation. Do you see that as well, kind of in just the path of development, I guess?
You bringing that up is actually in a lot of ways maybe even helping me heal those 8 years, because looking back, I needed that time. I needed to go. I needed to learn I needed to learn who I was. And needed to have those failures, and probably didn't need to have all those failures.
No, you didn't need to have them all.
I guess now I look back on it, but I 100% agree with you. Yeah,
that's funny. It's cool. Like, I think it's cool to have opportunities to reflect, because I'm the same way, right? Like, there's so many things that, from a human standpoint, I wish I could take back. I wish that didn't happen. But man, from like a God standpoint, right? Like, I'm so grateful for all of them. I don't want any of them back, because without any of the, like all of those, if one of those wouldn't have been a part of it, I would be a different person today. And it's all come full circle to who we are right now, sitting at this table with these mics. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. So let's return back to that let's return back to that story. I want to hear. Yeah. So you make this realization.
I should have never told my parents, by the way. My parents are still mad at me. They don't have that ocean house or lake house.
Oh, note to self: do not make promises that aren't.
Still mad at me.
So 2 weeks go by. You return. You're committed to not taking this. What's next? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, no idea. I literally had no idea. I was. At the time, I'm like, okay, I went back to what I knew. So I started putting feelers out to basketball coaches, and just to be a college basketball coach. And I started talking to people. And then what happened was, what's incredible is I reached out to a couple schools. The one guy that actually responded to me was Brad Stevens, who is now the head coach of the Boston Celtics. He was the head coach of Butler at the time. Yeah. So many people didn't respond to me. It's like, but he responded to me. It was so cool. Like, he was just like, hey, just want to let you know, we don't have any job openings, but I just want to say we love your stuff, and like, we appreciate just that small thing. To this day, he's like my favorite coach now in the entire NBA, just that small little act of kindness. But I literally went for about a year of just trying to figure it out. And then I gave a best man speech at my best friend's wedding in Baltimore, Maryland. And there was an actress in the audience, and I gave the speech. At the time, I'd given like 4 speeches in 2 years of my friends, of like best man speeches. And so I was pretty polished at that time. And she came up to me after, she goes, you're great. You're great. I'm like, my ego I'm like, thank you. I didn't thank you. That feels really good. I know. Wow. I mean, this is my 4th best man speech. Look how popular I am, She's like, you should be an actor. And I was like, that is so dumb. Like, who... I grew up in upstate New York. You don't know one person that's ever been an extra on anything ever, right? I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. She goes, no, really, I know this casting director in Miami. Her name's Lori Wyman. She's casting Burn Notice. You should go see her, get in front of the camera. Like, you should totally do this. But the competitiveness and the achiever in me was like, yeah, like, I'm going to be an actor. Like, that sounds cool. Like, look at those people. Like, they're totally, maybe that's who I am. So I went down and met Lori Wyman. Lori, I got in front of the camera the first time. I've never been more scared in my life. I'm sweating out of my armpits. I couldn't remember one line that she said. Afterwards, I was like, that was a complete failure. Lori took me aside and she goes, we're going to get you on a soap opera. It's like, I'm like, I can't even remember one line. How are you going to get me on a soap opera? I'm like, but that sounds awesome, So anyways, that's kind of how so that's how I got into acting. I'm like, and it wasn't because I felt like a passion for it. It was because I was so afraid of it. And I was like, I can't fail at this. I have to do it.
Wow. So talk to me about acting. Like, how many years were you an actor? And I guess, what are the big takeaways from you from that season? Because it is a extremely difficult thing to do, and takes a lot of skill and development. Like, this is like, I've learned that too, just from having a toe in the industry. Like, seeing it is like, wow, this is not easy. Talk to me about those years. Like, what was that journey like for you, and what did it teach you?
It's the hardest thing. Acting is that, from my opinion, is the absolute hardest thing you could ever do as a human being. It's the most difficult. It's the most looking inside of yourself, because there's so much stuff. When I was in medical sales for all those years, I could go to a hospital and present in front of doctors, and I could just give them the inspiration. I could give them the pep talk, I could like get them pumped up, and I knew more about my product than they did. So I knew that, right? So I could give like an hour and then go out of there and leave. But when acting, it's like, you have to it's so much internal than it is external, and you have to dig deep because the camera you can't hide anything in front of that camera. That's why I sweat that first time. It's because I didn't know who I was on the outside, and I knew that the camera was capturing that, and I felt so insecure. And the rejection part of what other profession do you do where you just get rejected over and over and over and over again for the hopes of one person saying, we like you? That is just like dumb. Why would why would anyone ever do that? Right. But there is people that I feel like it is their art. It is their craft. It is inside of them. That's not me. I did it because I needed to conquer it.
Yeah.
A fear that, but on the other side of it, and we work with, now I see why I was in that world, because a lot of our mentors, our actors are in that world, and I have so much respect and for what they do and the craft that they put themselves through. It's incredible.
It really is. Now, how many years did you pursue acting?
Yeah, I did it for about 2009 to 2012, and then I took a long retired break, and then that's another story. But for 3.5 years, I never got comfortable in front of the camera, and it got easier for sure. But the incredible thing is looking back on it, I actually had success doing it. I never knew it at the time, but people would look back and it's like, wow, you've done a lot of stuff. I did get on a soap opera. I did do a bunch of national commercials. Right before I retired, I was gifted, and that's why I say this, because I didn't earn those national commercials. I was gifted those national commercials by God, because he knew that in my heart I was going to start my first nonprofit, and I was going to need to self-fund that, and I did for about 3.5, 4 years. And it was only from those, I think it was about 5 national commercials in a matter of maybe like 4 or 5 months.
Wow. Yeah, that is incredible. That is totally a God thing, right? I mean, oh man. We had one of the interviews we had was with Natasha Ward recently, and she's a model and an actress, and we're actually part of some of the same agency out here, and we got to touch on a little bit of that. But the mindset it puts you in of that constant rejection, especially like even on the modeling side, that it's just so image based, that you start questioning all aspects of worth and value based on just a lack of information, a lot of it, and a lot of no's. But it is a really healthy refining period. It does teach us a lot of valuable things, even though it's really hard in the moment. Just
to kind of close on that, is that it taught me that my worth wasn't going to be found in my successes. It wasn't going to be found in acting. My worth wasn't going to be found in becoming a celebrity or fame. Because any success that I had, it in a lot of ways made me more empty, because it's like, wow, now I'm here, I have to go there, and I need it again. And then you walk into a room and you might book that national commercial. You walk into a room that next week, you're rejected again and again and again and again. And you're like, what? I just did this last week and the people love me. Like, why don't you love me? So it really was a incredible lesson.
I want to dive into this a little bit more, and just talking about work and identity, because I think it's something that I know I've had to deal a lot with. I know that everyone listening will have a lot that they can relate to. And so maybe we start with basketball, right? So you competed in college. Where did you play college ball at?
I played at Southern New Hampshire University in Manchester, New Hampshire.
So 4 years there.
Yep.
And then talk to me about that, what that transition into playing professionally was like, and what that experience was like, and then we'll touch on the identity afterwards.
Okay, yeah. So, I just didn't want basketball to end. I don't even know if I had a dream to be professional in basketball. I just knew that everything who I thought I was at the time was in that, and I just couldn't lose it. even though after college, looking back on it, I was burnt out. I knew I needed to change. But I just kept hanging on to it, and I just worked my butt off, kind of that achiever thing. And I got a call from my agent the summer after my senior year in college, and over again, he called me and said, "Nope, don't have anything. Nope, don't have anything. Nope, don't have anything." So, I thought that I wasn't gonna play professional basketball or get on a team. So I ended up taking a job with a guy who was starting a new medical sales company, and ended up being the company that I ended up, when I was done playing basketball, I ended up coming back and working for him. And then I took that job. It was in Bethesda, Maryland, and I got a call literally the day after from my agent and said, "Hey, we found you a team in Portugal." It's like, well, where is that? It's like, okay, now I know. Porto, Portugal, northern Portugal. And it's where they make port wine. And it was a really humbling experience because I actually got injured 2 weeks before I went over. I was going over and as a little bit damaged, and I didn't tell them because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to. So my entire journey of being overseas and being in this country where I knew no one, I was the only American on the team, and I also knew that I was injured the whole time. But I just kept trying to will myself through, and I just kept getting injured over and over again. And to the point where I got injured that last time. They shot a cortisone shot in my butt to try to heal my ankle. And I went out and I played 2 more games, and then I sprained my ankle again. And I basically just called home and said, I have to come home. I have to come back. So there it was. And at that moment was the moment that really I was like, okay, I'm going to retire.
So in that moment where you were in life then, how did you work through or cope with or process the identity that was about to shift?
I think, in a lot of ways it was looking back on it. It was, I never like partied in college. I was so driven. I wanted 2 goals. My goal was I wanted to become a professional basketball player. I didn't actually want to play professional basketball. I just wanted the title. I wanted to tell people I was a professional basketball player, Yep. And I wanted to become a first team academic All-American. I would pride myself in not just playing basketball, but also, being good in the books. And that's where I went. So after I was done playing basketball, I think I kind of went into just party. I'm just going to start partying because I never partied. I never knew what that life was like. And if I can't find my identity and my successes anymore, I'm going to find it in having fun, going out with girls, conquering whatever, it is that you need to conquer in that type of life, the next kind of high.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that was a journey, right? After basketball through medical sales and then into acting, the next thing to conquer. Talk to me about that post acting, right? So that's kind of it seems like the next big identity shift of, okay, like this isn't the thing I thought it was. This isn't where I want my identity to be found. What was that moment like, and how did you process it in that? What was the context around that kind of that next shift?
Yeah, I mean that's really kind of my come to Jesus moment. If I had gone, everyone always say like, why do you follow Jesus? I was like, because I tried everything else and nothing, everything left me empty. I've tried everything. You know what I'm saying? So, to the point where I was dating, a celebrity in Los Angeles, and we were going to the coolest places and the coolest, the coolest parties, and she was living in Beyonce's old place, and it was just like this crazy, and I was kind of living with her, and we were living this, and now I look back on it, the reason we attracted one another is because we both were just as empty as the other, and really the emptiness in her attracted the emptiness in me, and vice versa. And it was a really codependent relationship. The achievement then became this relationship in my life. That became my identity. I got to make this work. I gotta I get whatever it is. And I ended up getting her pregnant, and I knew that it was just bad. It was just a really unhealthy relationship. And we thought if we couldn't figure out our relationship, bringing a child into it would make us whole. It would make it work. And, but I knew in my soul that was just not a good decision. And, but I was going to do it because I was going to be a man and I was going to be a father. And about 3.5 months into her pregnancy, she came to me and she said, she goes, our relationship is horrible. And, I want to bring you somewhere, but I don't believe any of it. But I've never experienced more love in one place in my entire life. And she brought me to church. She was an atheist. And I said, well, I told her, I said, I do believe it. I do believe in it. And, she's like, our child is never going to grow up, believing in God, believing in Jesus. And so her bringing me to church that time actually caused more dissension, because we're fighting over God, but it's that moment, to see how God used her to get me back into church changed my life. Because about a month later, she woke me up in the middle of the night. She said, I'm having crazy pains. And, we like rushed her to the hospital, and we sat in, UCLA, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. They brought us through the back, and we were in there for 3 hours, and she's looking at me and saying, hey, everything's going to be okay. The baby's fine. I said, are you hungry? Do you want anything? He said, I would love some crackers. So I went out and I went into where the doctors and the nurses are. And I overheard a nurse talk to the doctor and say, have you gone in and told them that they lost the baby? And I wasn't supposed to hear that. And I went back in next to her, and I sat there, and the doctor didn't come back in for at least what felt like an entire night, but it was probably 2.5, 3 hours. They didn't say anything because they were trying to figure other things out. And she would look at me and say, everything's going to be fine. And I knew that we lost it. And I just didn't have the strength to tell her. And in that moment, I dropped to my knees, and I just asked God to, take me back. And like I heard God say, I've been here the whole time, So that's really the moment where I made a decision to follow Jesus.
Man, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. There's a sign above my desk. I don't know if you saw it over there. It's Latin. And it translated says, bidden or unbidden, God is present. And, it's a reality, and it's just amazing to hear the times when he brings us back to him to be in relation with him. So, wow. Yeah. That's amazing, man.
Yeah. So, just to the next day, I remember her looking at me and saying, we need to try again. And that's why, I believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, that God gives us the greatest gift, because there's no way that I had strength to say no. But, that night when I dropped to my knees and I gave my life to him, he gave me this supernatural strength that was like, no. And I left, and thank God that I did.
Wow. It really is. You can't put it into human words, right? Like the what he gives us in those moments, because it's not us, it's him in us. And when it's so clearly that's when he gets the most glory, and that's what he wants anyways. And I look back in so many places in my own life, and it's like, there's so many places where I would have been crushed and done, or even dead. And God preserved me by not allowing something to happen or by literally saving me. And it's just like, I can't take credit, right? Like this is just him preserving me to where he wants me to be. And it's such a gift, such a blessing. But it's usually through just immense suffering and hardship that we finally are broken and brought to our knees. And there just can't be any other way.
Yeah.
So
in that moment, I was introduced to my lifelong mentor.
Yes. I would say the best mentor there is in the world. That's for sure. That's a great way to look at it. That's what my grandpa, he always says his partner, he calls the Spirit his partner. And I love that. It's like, it's your confidant, it's your ally, it's your mentor. It's all of that and more. If we come full circle to today, you have a beautiful child and you are a father now and married to your lovely wife and all the things that God's brought in the last handful of years from that moment. What is this experience like of being a father now and from where God's brought you and how has being a father changed you in this season?
One is it's by far the greatest gift I've ever experienced. The capacity I feel like that we're given to love just incredibly expands. I never knew that I had that in me to love another more than I loved myself. You know, it started with marriage and then it grew to Alyssa, and then it grew with Camden. And I think honestly, just simply seeing God's design of marriage and God's design of family, of it just shows you that, you know, his ultimate sacrifice, and that's where we need to go as human beings, is to, you know, on a daily basis, I'm always laying down my life for my son. It doesn't always feel natural that I have to put his needs in front of my own or my wife's needs in front of my own. But I guess the more we do it, the more natural it becomes. And like, wow, that was always the design. Like, where did I go? Where did I go off? Where did I go wrong?
I think that's an important order and distinction too, because it's always the doing that leads to the believing, right? It's the doing that leads to the understanding. It's not the understanding that leads to the doing. Right? Yeah. We have to take those actions and fight to believe, and then we actually start believing.
Yeah, right.
It's always in that order, but we want it the other way. It's like, okay, into our thick skulls, let's pound this in. You have to act your way into the belief a lot of times. Yeah,
for sure.
What's been what would you say has been the biggest challenge in this season of being a father?
Just the time, by far. You know, it's like I never realized how much time I had to do so many different things, and now I just don't. I told you this today, is that the only time that I have to really do anything for me is from about 5:30 a.m. to 7. And that's a time that I need to spend in scripture. You know, I need that every day. I need to have that foundation of truth to start every day. So, and then when I'm out during the day, working with kids and in schools and working with mentors, doing that. And then when I get home, it's family time. You know, so that's the biggest transition. And it's not a bad thing. I wouldn't change it for anything. The time, not, losing my me time for losing the we time, the family time.
It even goes back to what we talked about at the start, right? The isolation versus the community and relationship. And really, like, we're always going to have a pull for a little bit of both in that sense, because we do need both. Like, at the end of the day, we do need a balance in that. They're both important in their own regard, but different seasons call for more of some and less of others. And those are important. You got to lean into the season where you're at, right? And but you hit on something that a lot of people had mentioned that's unique about you in doing some research, and that is just capacity. I think that from a relational capacity standpoint, one of the common themes that kept coming up is just the capacity that you have for relationships and cultivating them is abnormal and very unique. So I guess, I mean, common themes was like in talking about your superpowers, you're a connector, you're a guy that's always motivating, you have unending faith in others, you have an ability to see other people's superpowers. One person said you are friendship embodied.
Who is that? I feel like I now have to be a better friend to them.
I'm not going to expose names here, but yeah. So
friendship embodied. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Don't tell. Yeah. Because I'm thinking, don't tell me who that is. Because I'm like, man, I gotta like step my game up. Like I gotta always be that. I gotta always be friendship embodied.
Oh man.
Because the expectations.
Yeah. No, it's bad.
Yeah.
We can't get too. But in relation, like, what has created that relational capacity for you, and like how do you grow in relational capacity, I guess, if you could.
The why behind it is I know how it feels to be alone. That's why I do it. I know what it feels like to be isolated. I know what it feels like to feel like nobody is there with you, even though they are, but I don't know. I just know what it feels like to be alone. And I have a mission that for others that no one feels that. And an unconditional relationship where it's also like, I also know what it feels like to be in relationship with people because I want something from them. And also they might want something from me. So if I stop giving that to them or they stop giving that to me, I'm just going to move on. I know that the emptiness that creates. And then just the capacity. I mean, how do you, I think the best way how do I have a capacity to be in like a meaningful relationship with so many people is the understanding that I don't have to be everything to everybody. I just need to be what is needed to those individual people. So it's finding that point of maybe, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's totally, it makes a lot of sense. And I think okay. So the follow up then is how have you grown, or how have you been able to discern what is needed with relationships and people? Like, how have you grown in that sense? Yeah. Because it is a sense, right? It's not necessarily, it is a skill in some sense, but more of a sense and a skill combined, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Now that we're talking through this, and I just gave the talk this morning about meaningful relationships and how I build meaningful relationships, and like to answer your question about like what is needed, I think the three things that I've always needed, and that's what I try to give to everyone that I come in contact with, is a level of care. They know that I care for them. I genuinely am caring for them. They feel taken care of, in my presence, or they just, it's hard to explain care, but you just know when someone cares about you, right? They're going to be there for you. You just, and it's an unconditional type of care, And the other thing is consistency is like, I'm going to do what I'm going to say I'm going to do, but I'm also going to, hey, if I haven't talked to you in a little while, I'm going to reach out. Hey, what's going on? It's such a beautiful thing right now with we can use technology for good and for bad. But one of the best ways that I love using technology is if God puts someone on my heart, shoot them a text message. It's like means everything. That didn't cost me anything to do that, right? So that's the consistency, being consistent. I've always wanted consistency. I wanted someone to be by my side when I was in a good place. I wanted someone to be by my side when I needed them most. And I was maybe in a bad place, The third is unconditional love. A lot of our mentors, whether you mentor with Good City Mentors, or whether you bring food over to our house when we have when Camden was born, or it's not. I love what you put it the other day. Love isn't transactional. It was just like it's not a transaction, right? You wrote that, you texted that to me, right?
Well, we're trained that way, right? Like culture and society, it trains us to operate on that, because like I think we look at love as a resource, not as a gift, right? And there's a big difference. And that even goes into like God's design, right? Like God's design is not to see love as a resource, it's to see it as a gift.
Right. Yeah.
And that's also the importance of marriage, right? It's like a gift that you're giving in a bond that's committed, not some resource that you're trading for.
Yeah.
And one has fulfillment and one has very momentary fulfillment, right? Or momentary happiness from it. And so it's just interesting how many layers this has to it.
Yeah.
But I like those. I think that's really important. Just the three you gave there, the genuine care, the consistency, and the unconditional love. And I think it just highlights the fact, something I've been talking about with a lot of people recently, that just as much as God, like I think you see it in David, right? David's a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well, it's definitely not just only the actions; it's the heart. He didn't say a man with actions after God's actions. No, it's the heart. Yeah. And so out of the right heart flows the right actions.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying too with genuine care, is that if you have a heart that genuinely cares for someone, the right care will flow out of that, and the other people will know, regardless of whether or not it is the right care in the moment. Because they see we have that sense of the heart, I guess. So it's really interesting, but that is a really helpful reminder, I think, for all, myself included, all of us listening, is like, that's what's needed in relationships, is genuine care.
Yeah. And that's what, like, to circle back to your, like, how do you have a capacity? Right now we have almost 100 mentors that I am the director of, in our volunteering. Right. So, and I have to have a connection point with every single one of our mentors, because that's an important thing, is that there needs to be that facilitator, that cultivator, that person that's actually leading our program. And what I realized is that relationships isn't always about what is having to do anything. I don't have to certainly live in Los Angeles. You live in Glendale. I live on the West Side. You invite me on Fridays, and I'm like, I love you that you invite me to come over, because everyone should come over to Thanes on Fridays. But there's no possible way that I could, and I tell you that, but I love you. You keep asking, because I know that's genuine care. You genuinely like, no, I'm going to get Brian over there. We're going to get the whole family over, whatever it is. But I'm realizing that the capacity expands when I realized that I didn't have to, it wasn't always a doing or an action to building a relationship with someone. I didn't have to physically be there with them or in front of them. It's more of just like the posture of the heart and those little things that I can do to have that other person know that I care, that I'm consistent, and that whether they can do anything for me or not, they know that I'm going to unconditionally love them, and I'm going to be right by their side if they need me. If you need me to drive out to Glendale from the West Side, I'm there.
During rush hour.
If you really need me,
that is love, folks. That is real
love. If you really need me, I'm there. You know what I'm saying?
I know, man. It's so true, and I think you make a good point. Like love is in the no just as much as it is in the yes, right? Like true love is not just saying yes because that's what they want to hear. It's saying yes when they need to hear it, and no when they need to hear that even more, right?
Yeah.
And that's arguably harder, but love is also arguably harder than, true love is harder than fake love.
Yeah.
I mean, so the other one, before we move past this, I do agree with some of the comments that people made in reaching out, that you have a measure of what was said, and I quote, "Unending trust, faith, and pride in the people he surrounds himself with. He sees things in other people that they don't even see yet themselves." So this belief in the people that are around you, where does that come from, and what fuels that, or what is, how does that play out in your life? Is that conscious or unconscious, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's this. I remember someone when I was like 23 years old. We were sitting. It was I was done. Maybe I was about 25. I was done playing basketball, and he looked at me and he goes, his name was Jeremy, and he goes, and we're partying, and he goes, "Dude, how come you haven't made it?" I was like, man, like that's deep right now, dude. I'm like, let's see, but he's like, how come you haven't made it? And in like deep down, that really hit me, because there was something inside of me that felt like there's so much more to me than what I was giving. There's so much more to me of what I could actually, the contribution that I could be in the world than I was living out. He was thinking, why weren't you, running a big business by now, or like whatever it may be, and it was right. And I'm like, man, there's something inside of me. And that's what I see in people. I see what I felt, that there was so much more inside of me than I was putting out, but I also was believing in. I didn't know that I had I didn't really get that there was unique gifts and there was a purpose on my life, and that, I could use it to help others and all this stuff. Like I felt it, but I didn't know it. But that's what I see in people. I believe that God doesn't make mistakes. So if you're here and you're alive, God has a purpose for your life. So I want to help people see that if they don't see it themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's super powerful, and I mean, people are seeing that, right? And I think it's amazing just to hear, because if we can carry that into our daily interactions, we don't know the impact that that's going to have on others, but it has way bigger impact than we would expect or believe. And it's as simple as caring about them, but also believing in them, right? It's like, it's an empowerment, not just a care. It's the pushing for their best. And it's like not letting them settle in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think this brings us back to really where we are now, right? And just to highlight, I mean, like we talked about in the hero's journey, there was 8 years or so of that kind of searching, right? And those experiences kind of on your own. And it's so interesting because Robert Greene in his book Mastery really talks about the timeline it takes to really gain mastery is like 7 to 10 years. This is a pretty universal length of time. Yeah. And I experienced the same really in my life with golf, right? Yeah. Because from college to through my professional career was about almost 8 years. And that was really a deep dive into this experience of what it means to pursue mastery in the sport. And that fueled all that I did with the book now and that I'm speaking to. And it's been amazing because it's taking a lived experience and then turning into knowledge and then turning into empowering others. Yeah. And the same is true for you with your life, right? Those were 8 years of experience of like, okay, where is meaning found? Where is purpose and happiness found? Yeah. And what do these different avenues entail? And then now, after those lived experiences, going through the knowledge journey of like putting it into information, and where you are now is taking that and giving it to others in Good City Mentors. Yeah. And I think that brings it full circle. It's just a beautiful picture to see. So I want to hear about Good City Mentors, what the seed, the planting of that was like, and then we can talk about where it is now.
Yeah, thanks for piecing that together for me. You have a gift with that. Piecing fragmented stories together to give it purpose, So right at the end of those commercials that I shot a Jif peanut butter commercial, choosy moms and dads, choose Jif. It's a new promotion, trying to get dads pumped about Jif peanut butter. I was the dad.
If anyone can do that, you can.
I was the dad, and
we'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, everyone stops, goes, looks back. I think I've deleted that, but it might still be up. And where were we thinking? Man, I digress.
That's amazing.
Digress. And what was your question again?
The seed
Good city,
starting, not the peanut butter seed, but the seed.
There we go. Yeah. So I went on I joke around. I went on a citywide Jif peanut butter commercial tour where I was, hired as a guest speaker, not really, but it was a friend who's a pastor at my church, and he was an English teacher, and he's just like, he just did all these like commercials. You should come into our school and you should tell the kids all the things that you did, right? So I went in and I put together, you've heard this story, I put together my best motivational speech. It was at a last chance school in Crenshaw, and it was with kids who were really either kids that were formerly incarcerated or kids that have been literally hanging on, high school students hanging on by a string to just make it really tough experiences. And when I prepared a motivational speech, it was about love and basketball. I figured since that was a movie, then it must go over well with the students. It went over horribly bad. The one dude, after I was done, I had the mic drop and I said, what if the purpose of love is not whether you win or lose, but how well you love one another? I talked about my high school basketball experience, us losing this New York State championship. And literally I walked out, I thought it was going to be a standing ovation from this school. And it was literally like 100 students staring at me like, what is wrong with this white dude? Who is he? Like what just happened? Yeah. And I like ran out, and then one guy, you've heard this story, one guy actually stood up and said, and basically goes, yo, F this dude. and the whole school like erupted laughing, wrong time I thought it would, and I ran out, but God stopped me and said, go back in there. This is not another moment where you're going to run from your fears. I went back in there. I talked to a teacher who invited me, and I said, you set me up, didn't you? He said, yep. He goes, you could have said anything, and those kids would have been like, because they didn't know, they don't care what you have to say because they don't know that you care at all. And I said, what do I do? How do I help? He says, you want to help? He goes, everyone comes in here and thinks they know what our students need the most. They might be it might be a motivational talk. It might be after school tutoring. It might be, and that's good. And it might be bringing in products, or he says, no, he goes, what our students need are you and about every other person that you know to consistently come in here and start investing and caring about their lives because they don't have it. So 2 weeks later, I called every single guy I knew. If I knew you at the time, I would have called you. I said, there's a bunch of kids in Crenshaw, California. Where's Crenshaw? It's only about 4 miles from West Hollywood, South LA, that need us. Are you in? Almost every guy that I asked said, I'm in. I was like, that's incredible. I thought no one would do it. So 2 weeks later, the teacher talked to the students, and all the students that he asked, they said yes. I thought that was incredible. I thought there was no way they would want to do something like that. And we started a little in-school mentorship program. That now, 4.5, 5 years later, is my entire life.
Wow. This guy, was it the principal that brought you in?
He was a English teacher.
English teacher. How did he know? Like, talk to me about his foresight. And that seems like an amazing instinct from him in knowing how to hook you and empower you, right? That's almost like a beautiful picture of a mentor right there. Like, what did he see in that, or what was his thought process in that, if you knew? Yeah.
Well, now that I think about it on the other side, he had always known that the answer and the greatest need was mentorship, was to bring some positive, caring adults into the students' lives, because that's what is missing in many of our students' lives. And he had tried it a bunch of times and wasn't able to, and failed at it. And the reason why he failed at it, not because of anything, he's a super talented, gifted man, but he's an English teacher. So he couldn't run, he didn't have the time to run what it takes to actually bring together 35, 40 people, bring together the students, be the bridge, curate, facilitate the programming. All the stuff that goes into it is massive, and he just didn't have the time to do it. So I think he saw me and was like, that's my guy, I'm going to get that guy to run it. But he had already, God put the vision in his head before I had even met him.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love that. I love how God equips us for what he has, and then he pieces it together, right? He brings the pieces together so beautifully. So Good City Mentors, give me the elevator pitch of what Good City Mentors is today and where you're going. Yeah,
so we bring people like, if you know Thane, who is a creative, inspiring...
I'm blushing. This guy.
I'm going to throw in charming now. Professional with so much to give, so much to offer. We bring people like you into high schools to work with awesome kids, awesome students that really could use some positive, caring adults in their life. We do it in a really unique way where the mentoring is not the kind of one-to-one match that we're maybe used to in the models. Is we do something called team mentoring, where you're in a team on a team or a community, and we all come together, and it's in the school. So all of our mentoring is done in the school. We meet the students where they are. We tried it outside of school, never worked, because a lot of the students we work with, you can't find them as soon as that bell rings. And while you're in that community in the school, you just naturally, organically vibe with who you vibe with. And through that, you start meeting the students, and the students start meeting the mentors. So where we are is we are partnering with really fantastic business. One of the great things about being in Los Angeles is we have some of the coolest brands in the entire world, with some of the coolest employees that want to help the kids if they knew a way and it was doable. So we partnered with employees from Netflix, and a lot of employees from Netflix in East Hollywood. We're partnered with employees from Bank of California Stadium, which is Los Angeles Football Club's new stadium. Partnering with employees from Capital Group, which is the biggest private equity financial firm in the world. Just connecting their employees into the schools and giving them an opportunity to serve.
I love that. So the two of the pillars, like you mentioned, were being in the school and team mentoring. Mm-hmm. Did those come just by trial and error, like learning what doesn't work first to learn what does work? Is that kind of the process? To walk me through kind of what those things you've learned over the years are. Yeah,
when we started this like in school little mentoring program, the only mentoring that I knew was like the big brother, big sister model. The 1-to-1 every other weekend. You go do something, go on a hike, and the students that we work with teenagers. And we started with that model, but what we would find is we had these 35 men. We started only a men's program, and we had these caring adults. They wanted to do good, but it was outside of school. It was kind of it was really whenever you can. But as soon as that bell rang, the kids that we worked with, they were gone. You could never find them. I remember like chasing kids down, like, hey, we were supposed to hang out, and they're like, I don't know you like that. I don't know you like that. So it's really hard to build any type of caring connection. So through like unbelievably, through failure for about the first year and a half of that kind of 1-to-1 outside of school model, we realized there's no way this is we're burning our mentors out. They're trying to locate kids throughout Los Angeles. Los Angeles is huge. So we brought everything inside the school. It's a built-in community, a built-in container. The kids are there. It's probably the best chance for them to really get on a good path, is for them to be successful at school. We started partnering with teachers, with administrators. How can we help the school be successful and better and stuff like that? So it was just a whole bunch of just trying out what model works and failing that we came up with now this model that we feel is a citywide, not just a citywide, but a scalable nationwide mentoring, school-based mentoring model.
I guess, there's so much, but I just want to underscore the fact that literally almost always the process of learning what to do starts with learning what not to do, and that entails failing. Like, we need to embrace the discomfort of failing and say, this is a necessary part of learning what to do. It's a necessary part of growth. And so I think that's just really important to underscore. But I do love the team mentoring and in the school, and from experience, getting to be a mentor the last several months I've seen the benefit from that model. And it really is, I believe, like the most effective way to facilitate these relationships, because when you're going once a week at an individual level is it's a hard leap to get to that level, right? And if we can make stepping stones to get to that level instead of this massive like 10-foot gap leap, it's always going to be more sustainable. But in light of like a nationwide thing, why hasn't something like this, what has prevented this model from being done before? Like why isn't it being replicated more often?
That's a really great question. I think the first thing that comes up is when we come in and we consult with other type of organizations that need a mentoring. Like I was telling you that we're starting to consult with the Los Angeles, the city, on this kind of new mentoring model. Their biggest thing is, how do you find your mentors? Where are they coming from? We can't find any mentors. And I feel like it's a cultural shift. A lot of our mentors are millennials. A lot of them are that generation where wanting to serve, wanting to use their gifts to help others, wanting to change the world, wanting to impact the world. That's now part of people's lives. It's just not what you do when you retire anymore. It's actually meaning, purpose, and fulfillment now is demanded by employees in jobs. So I feel like we're just right now on the cusp of that trickling into someone just needs to create a model that's like doable for employees, because whenever we go to businesses right away and we give them a way and a bridge, they're like, I'm in. How do I sign up? So I think we're there. I think we're there right now, to be honest with you. I think our relationship with Netflix is proof that when we put out an email, or we had someone put out an email, that immediately 75 high-level employees were like, awesome, I'm in. Where do we go? Next door. That's another thing about the mentoring model, is to make it doable is, one is the team aspect, is it's not all on you. So if you can't make it one day, you got to go do something awesome. Great. The students know 15 other mentors, that they're more connected to a community than they are to one individual person. Naturally, you'll vibe with one person or a couple people. But the other thing is that making mentoring doable by making it close. LA makes us do that because you can't, in a lot of ways, you're a unique specimen that you drive from Glenville to Hollywood to mentor. Thank you very much for doing that. Majority of our mentors won't do that because it will take up almost half your day. So you got to make it easy, make it doable, just show up. So we partnered with Netflix, and there just happened to be 4 high schools right next door to them in East LA that are all high need high schools that need employees. So they get to just take an hour of their day and walk across the street.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. I think that's a really profound point, that because just to underscore what you said, with meaning, purpose, and fulfillment now being demanded throughout our lives instead of just after our careers. And that's we talk a lot about the negative aspects of social media and the age of information that we live in. And there definitely are plenty to go around from the negative side. But from the positive side, there's a lot of those too. And one of those is the fact that people start understanding that they need to make an impact, because there's a lot of places that need their help. Yeah. And they start realizing that impact isn't something on a global scale, it's on a personal, individual, local scale, right? Yeah. And that's what leads to the bigger impact. And so I think that's one of the best blessings of this next upcoming generation in the world that we live in today. Yeah. And seeing more of the needs, as we recognize our role is more active in filling those needs. For sure. So that is such a blessing, and we should definitely, the cool thing is now, how can we help facilitate that, right? And I think you guys, just from experience, and to just give some credit where credit is, I mean, you guys have done a great job. Honestly, I've been blown away by one, like making it as easy as possible. It truly is as easy as possible. Just an hour and a half once a week, that kind of vibe. And it's just amazing having it be something that simple. But But
it's an hour thing, but you go above and beyond. So you stay there for 30 minutes just to connect, which I appreciate. I noticed that. I just want to let you know. I see that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is just affirming all that we talked about before about Brian.
I see that. Yeah.
Yes. No, it's
because when I was younger, I'm like, doesn't anyone see that I'm going above and beyond in like whatever I'm doing? I'm like, I'm here practicing. I needed that, like, there's a level as when we're younger, we need to have those wins. We need to have those affirmations because it helps. We got to celebrate it. And I felt like, so that's why I see that in others, because it's all that I wanted when I was younger.
Totally, 100%. But the thing I think has blown me away is that even with that little bit of time, over a 2-month plus period right now, it has blown me away the level of impact you can see it having, right? Like, I have been floored by the difference you see in the students just over that short period of time. And it has really been humbling and also encouraging to realize that it doesn't take rocket science. It doesn't take these massive commitments that we think we can't give. It just takes, like you said, consistency and showing up.
Yep.
It's as simple as that, right?
It's so simple. I was on the phone with my wife, Alyssa, on the way here, and we were just leaving a session in East Hollywood with a whole bunch of Netflix employees. And I was on the phone with her, and she's like, how was it? And I said, it was incredible. And will you please remind me how simple it is? Like, all we do is we create a safe space for mentors to give and to share and to listen, to ask questions, for students just to share their hearts and their challenges and their struggles. And that's all that's needed, that consistent connection and a place where we hear all the time, what's your greatest fear as a student, a young person? Being judged. It's our greatest fear. So if you can create, if anybody works with young people, if you can create a space where they don't feel judged, then I feel like they'll really show you their heart.
I guess, did you kind of, I'm guessing you fell into the high school age more than necessarily chose it, but what do you love about this high school age of life?
Yeah. I love when people are like, well, don't you want to work with elementary school kids? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to work with them because they are not screwed up yet. And I don't say that. And then, like, our high school kids are screwed up, but just life in general, the older we get, we take on all of these things. Yeah. We take on life and we take on so much. And I really feel called to work with students that have experienced stuff, that experience challenges, experience pain, experience loss, experience trauma. Because I feel like, and those are the ones that are the closest to becoming grown-ups in society, in our world. So if we can kind of reach them at that really critical, that's a crossroads. It's a crossroads in their life, that those teenage years. You remember when you were a teenager, the choices you're making in those kind of are critical. Mm-hmm. So I just feel really called for that age. Because the other thing is in that age as a teenager, a lot of times you wear your challenges and your struggles, your emotions, you wear them on your sleeve. You try to hide them, but you can't. You try your best that no one can see them, but you still haven't gotten that grown up thing where you can fake it. Mm-hmm. You know when a kid's struggling. Yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot more sophisticated at faking it the older you
get. The older you get, yeah.
Yeah. And you add layers on top too, and like you suppress things deeper and deeper to where it takes way more unpacking to bring it up.
Yeah.
It's so funny, like knowing myself in high school, this is just how God works. So ironic. I didn't swear, but I basically told myself I'm never going to work with high school.
Yeah. I'm never going to what?
I'm never going to work with high schoolers.
Yeah.
I just can't. I just can't help high schoolers. I can't do it. I know who I was, and there's no way, I could,
Yeah.
And here we are.
It's just
here
so
you are,
funny. Yeah. It's so crazy.
It's just ironic, but it is a really neat age. It really is. And it's amazing because when you can, I think one of the things from my perspective is when you can, there's this car that's moving down a road, down a path, right? And if you can influence that car in the direction it's going early enough, that small shift that direction doesn't take very long for it to get back on the right path, right?
Yeah.
But the longer it goes on the road without any directional shifts, the longer it'll take to get back on the right path. And so I think it's an age where you're reaching it to where hopefully it can make that small shift to get them on the right path. That's a lot quicker, or easier than it is after more and more of the same down that path.
Yeah.
So it's pretty powerful. The other thing that was interesting that I think a lot of us would agree, because I've really enjoyed getting to know the other mentors too. And one of the questions was, how do you identify the mentors that you want to be a part of the program? And I know part of it is just like who's willing and able, but I know there is a part of like really seeing and empowering that is part of your role in facilitating. So I guess maybe this goes back into what we touched on earlier with the sense, but do you have any methodology or process in that?
Yeah. Every mentor that we have has been built from those original 35 guys in one way. A friend of a friend, a friend of a friend of a friend, a friend that I invited in. So that's really the foundation. So that foundation, we love to bring in, one is, our teams are super diverse, which is the makeup of Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Super, really diverse experience, diverse, race, diverse social emotional or socioeconomic background. But there has to always be a foundation of mentors that are really like the anchors of the program. And now that you've been there for a few months, like you're becoming part of that like foundation. And then once you have that foundation that are people that are just really, you trust them, and then we can start bringing in other people and just see how it kind of works out. It's almost like in a weird way, people will either select in or select out, and you kind of know. And just God always just brings us the right people. The people that are supposed to be there stick around and stay and are really connected to the kids, and the people that just maybe want to come in for a couple times and have a really great moment, but maybe leave them. It's okay. They weren't, Totally. That was just for their moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So before we wrap up, I just got a few more, and then we'll end with some one-offs and be done. But you've been through a lot, right? Life has been a journey, and it is for all of us. Mm-hmm. And God has definitely grown you through a lot of trials. But I guess looking at this season of life that He has you in now, when is faith hardest for you?
When things aren't going the way that I want it to go, in my mind, my will. I think that's the initial go-to. And then the initial thought is like, what's up, God? Like, why, why isn't it going that way? But I think as I've continued to mature in my faith, that's actually the moment that gets me closer to Him when things aren't going well. And that's God saying, this is your moment to lean into me and to seek me more than when they are going well. You start to see the design of, wow, if things always went good and always went well, why would I need God?
Totally.
Right? I start to see that in my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need to depend on Him for anything. I wouldn't have needed to drop down to my knees in that hospital room because I'd come to the end of myself and couldn't do it anymore. If it was all going okay, I would have never needed to do that.
That is so true. It is. I mean, God is all throughout Scripture is like our cornerstone, right? Mm-hmm. What's the point of a cornerstone? It's to hold the rest of the building in place. Yeah, it's the foundation, right? He's our rock. What is a rock? Like he's our anchor. Yeah, He's our refuge. Like all these things that you go and depend on in the moment of most need, and that's, like you said, like that's the design, even in sin. Like sin is to show our need. Yeah. It's showing like, this is why you need me. Because without me, this is where you go. Yeah. And
yeah, and that's the I love that about, just to like touch on our, our sin and our wrong, is that is the, you can look at it as like, screwed up again, didn't do, but that is the moment where you're like, where I looked for other things other than God to fill that kind of God-shaped hole inside of me, that void, God-shaped void inside of me. Someone said that, they said, you have a void inside of you and it's God-shaped. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's so true.
Yeah.
Because I've tried to fill that void with everything else, and that void just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I like thinking about it too. It's like literally there's a hole in our heart that can only be filled by one thing, right? And ultimately it's Jesus, because like and it's a personal experience side too. Like, look, like in my life, when I have that hole filled with Jesus and I'm pursuing him, there's no hole. Like there's no lack of meaning. Yeah. There's no lack of purpose. There's no like why, right? It's full. Yeah. It all makes sense. Now when I'm not, there is that like longing for more. But when it's full, there's no longing for more. Yeah. Like it's full, Yeah. And that's my experience that I can't deny, And it's like, it's real. And so I can't help but believe,
Yeah.
Which is just so beautiful. What is, I guess, what is the most common self-talk? What is the thing you have to preach, the truth you have to preach yourself the most?
You're not enough. Your nonprofit's not big enough. You don't have enough. You're not reaching enough kids. You're not recruiting enough mentors. You're not raising enough money. You should have grown way faster. You should have expanded nationally by now. Why all those things basically with that all fall in the you're not enough, Brian.
That's the lie, right? And what's the truth you preach to yourself?
What's that song? I am who you say I am.
Yeah.
Who sings that song? Hillsong. I am who you say I am. The truth is that that I'm enough I'm enough right now in this moment. I don't need anything more to fill my identity, that my identity is sealed in Jesus. My identity is sealed in that he says that I am his child and I am loved by him, and that he has a purpose for my life. And that on top of that, I don't need anything more. Everything else is literally just bonus round.
Bonus round. I love that. Yes. Oh, it's so good. Let's end with a few one-offs here. What do you wish you knew more about?
I mean, do you want the spiritual answer, or would you like the lively answer? The spiritual answer is like, I just crave to know Jesus more.
Yeah.
I mean, the more that I seek him, the more that I see him, and it's just, I have this like inside of me, but it's not a lack of wishing I knew more. It's bonus round.
Yeah,
I'm full and I want more, but it's not because I don't have it already.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's like the spiritual answer. The life answer, the worldly answer would be, I wish, God, what is it, Thane? I want to give you something like,
it can be as superficial as you want it to be.
Yeah. Right now in this moment, I wish that I knew, it's so funny, but I wish I knew how to raise more funding so I could start hiring more directors to go into more schools to reach more kids.
Yeah.
That's what I wish I knew more of right now.
I love it. Scaling. Next step, next phase. That's legit. What does being an up-and-comer mean to you?
Someone that is the first word that came to my mind is like I'm emerging. I think we're always an up and comer, to be honest with you. From my experience in life, I never was like, I'm there, other than like my faith. I feel like we're always an up and comer. There's always like places to grow. So that's why I feel up and comer is someone that realizes that they don't have to get anywhere. We're always kind of in a place of growth. We're always in a place of journey, of process.
Amen. That's it. That was well said. I mean, we might just have to, steal that and put it on our website because that's money. I mean, I think that says it all. What are your cornerstone habits?
Hour in the morning when I wake up, I spend in scripture. Need that time. The last couple hours of every night needs to be with my wife. I just feel like that's the best, just to end the day with literally the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it was God giving me the gift of Alyssa. And I love shooting hoops right now with my 16-month-year-old baby every day on a little tyke hoop. He's like 13 basketballs right now.
Give him the form, teaching him on the form already.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I always think to myself, is it healthy? You know what? But he's choosing it, Thane. He's choosing. It's his only option, but he's choosing it,
Curated choice.
Yeah.
What books have had the biggest impact on you?
The Alchemist was the book that I read right before I got on that cruise, before I called Alex and told him I wasn't taking that job. I read The Alchemist, and The Alchemist said that I have this what's the word that they use, but there's a destiny on your life or something like that. There's a purpose on your life. And I knew that was not taking that job. I was going to be moving to New York. I was living in Florida at the time. So I would say that for sure. Obvious answer is the Bible. I mean, that's just the truth. And I just read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the Nike story. That was incredible. Ever since, I read it and he probably did this on purpose, but I read it and I went right to the outlet and just bought a whole bunch of Nike stuff. I'm like, yep. He totally, cause I love to, I don't know if you read that or not, but it's just he just never quit. Nike just didn't happen overnight. It was 15 years before something really and he just wouldn't give up on it. Everything said, you need to become an accountant. You need to go back to your job. And he didn't. And he just kept pushing forward.
Wow. That's amazing. That's legit.
That's a great book. I devoured that in 2.5 days, and I don't read.
Yes.
Like that.
That's amazing.
That's a really good book.
I love that.
If Phil is listening right now, we'd also love to have a lot of mentors from Nike. So, Phil, we'd love to.
I'm sure he's an avid listener. He's an avid. Yeah.
He's gotta be putting that out there.
I love it. 2 more. If you were to give a TED Talk, what would you speak on?
Meaningful relationships. Building meaningful relationships. And I guess that's what I would give it on.
I love it. What does it mean to be a leader?
What does it mean to be a leader? Do you want what I say in the classroom or what I believe, which are pretty equal?
Give me the one that you've been teaching, and then give me what you really believe.
Yeah. So what we teach is that leaders build meaningful relationships and create meaningful change in their life. That's what we teach to our students. but I would say and I believe that's from life experiences. That's from my life.
Yep.
Leadership is all about building meaningful relationships with people and creating change in the world, creating something good. Why would you lead people into something that's not making the world better? Right. So I believe that, but more than anything is I think a great leader is one that is led. And I think the one that I follow is Jesus. So I feel like leadership is to be led.
I love that. Last question. If you could send a morning text reminder to every up-and-comer out there, what would you say and why? They get this every morning on their phones as a reminder.
Yep. I would say two things. I'd say just show up. Whatever it is in the day, just show up. It is so much of life. You might not know why, just show up and then you'll figure out why. The other thing is you've already won. Because the flip side of that is I'm not going to do something, I'm not going to try because I might fail. And we're so afraid to fail in life that there's so many things that we know inside of us that we want to go for, we want to make, or we want to create, but we don't.
Yes. Yes and amen. Just show up and you've already won. Powerful words, my friend. Where can people find more about Good City and about you and all the work that you're up to now?
GoodCityMentors.org is our website. And of course we have all socials and
Of course.
You'll see right on the front page of GoodCityMentors.org, you'll see one of my favorite students of all time, Rashid. We just got him a job working at the Bank of California Stadium.
Wow.
But he is our right on the front page. So go to the website at least just to check Rashid out.
That's amazing. I love it. Well, Brian, this has been a blast. I'm so grateful that you were able to come on the show today and just share all the nuggets that you dropped. It's going to be such a blessing for everyone listening. You can find the full show notes at theupandcomershow.com/episodes/Brian. That's Brian, Brian. And until next time, brother, this has been awesome. Keep up the great work. And for everyone listening, we hope you have an up and coming week.